What is the worst thing that has happened at a high school reunion party that you attended? 5-year reunion. One guy. Always kind of a marginal figure in HS. But a nice person. After some sort of discussion. Got his paycheck out and got loud saying, "Now do you think I'm a loser? Don't believe how much I make. Check this out." Of course. He just made things worse. And everyone was laughing at him. I mean, he had his paycheck on him. Haven't seen him since. BTW. At my 10-year reunion, the organizers were doing the thing where they give awards for the person who came the farthest to attend, to the person with the most kids, etc. The award came up for who had the oldest kid, and people started shouting out their kids' ages. When it quieted down, this shy girl near the front said in a normal voice, 11, and then we all realized why we had stopped seeing Heather right before graduation. During our reunion, a social group of cool people that I had cordial relations with during high school, but was never part of, all met up and were pretty happy about it, until it somehow came out over alcohol that all of them had been basically having orgies together during high school, except one of them. He had always seemed like a core member of the group from the outside, not unattractive or anything. But for some reason he was just never clued into the fact that all his friends were ducking each other en masse for basically as long as they knew each other. There was some very eye-opening loud screaming. Someone who was considered a popular kid at my high school tried to organize our 10-year high school reunion on a cruise ship. Obviously no one wanted to shell out that kind of money, so the reunion never happened. Not mine. But my mother went back to her 40-year reunion last summer. In December she left my father, 36 years of marriage, for her high school sweetheart, and is now living with him. It's been a decade since I finished school. I see an old classmate sometimes when he does maintenance work in my apartment block. About a year ago he asked if I was going to the reunion organized by some of our classmates. I said no, because I couldn't think of anything worse, and also hadn't been invited. Apparently they organized it over Facebook, which I don't have. When I next saw him 6 months later I asked how the reunion was, and he exasperatedly explained that it had been a real crap show. The mean girls had started planning it together, fell out, and then started each planning their own. So there was about 4 crappy tiny awkward parties and everyone was confused. My 50th is scheduled for October. All this is inspiring me to go just to see what happens. I hope I can get across the country by then. Not so much at but before. 10-year reunion for my largest school. 500 graduates per year. The plan was for the reunion to take place over Thanksgiving weekend. To help pay for the expense, raffle tickets were sent out to the entire class to sell. The reunion didn't happen. It wasn't really bad, just odd. A guy came with full Kiss style makeup on, white face, black shapes around his eyes and black lips. We were too awkward and polite to mention it, so everyone just chatted with him, as though it was completely normal to turn up like that. One guy had made not one, but 2 fortunes, and had a net worth of well over $100 million by our 20th reunion. High-speed modem patents in the late 1980s. Early investor in broadband. Right place at the right time. He'd already retired. On our classmate update bulletin he listed his occupation as unemployed, and unemployable as a bit of a gag. Some of the well-meaning but clueless types sought him out to offer encouragement and tips on how to find work. My therapist encouraged me to go to my 10-year, which, in retrospect, was probably a play for job security. Edit. Oh wow. Thanks for my first awards and gold, kind Reddit strangers. At my 20-year reunion, 2 decades after high school, 2 guys got arrested for fist fighting on the sidewalk outside the bar we went to Friday night. Why were they fighting? One of the guys slept with the other guy's girlfriend in high school, and drunkenly brought up the 20 years ago fling. Neither of them married her, or even dated her after high school. Those idiots got charges 20 years later for her, though. We had a teacher in high school that told us by the time you reach your 10-year reunion, At least one of your classmates will have died during a discussion about mortality. 10-year reunion arrives and nobody from our class has died. Saturday night of the reunion we are partying and having a good old time. One of the organizers gets up to the microphone and is making some announcements. She gets a blank look on her face and drops to the floor. Brain aneurysm. She was dead before she hit the floor. I didn't go to my 10-year, but my entire friend group did, and they all called me asking where I was. While on the phone with one of them, he goes, "Oh crap. Brittany is here." Brittany was a train wreck in high school and apparently hadn't changed in 10 years. She proceeded to get trashed, get in a fight with a waitress, and did meth in the bathroom. Police picked her up that night after she was found passed out in the McDonald's bathroom. We'd been there less than an hour, having a great time reconnecting. Suddenly an old friend approached and said, "Is that your wife over there? She's pretty hammered," and as we watched, she tripped and fell face first. Full body crash onto a 12-top table where many of my old classmates were sitting. The table broke. Food and drinks flew everywhere. I walked over, scooped her up, and half carried / half walked her out the door. She took Xanax before going, unbeknownst to me, and was an alcoholic who started slamming drinks as soon as she got there. So, good times. Graduated in 2008, and not a single word about any reunion. Someone had an epileptic seizure, and we had to call an ambulance. They were okay, but the party ended very early. No one came. I went to my 10-year. It was admittedly a really ducking small town. So my class was only 27 people. But only 4 people showed up and one was actually homeschooled. It kinda sucked. I was looking forward to seeing people, and traveled from a long way away. 3,000 miles. It kind of jaded me towards my classmates. I'm not angry or anything. Just a realization that there really wasn't any connection that survived. At the after party, the one guy getting drunk enough to think it was a great time / place to discuss race relations with one of our black classmates. Well, not so much discuss as randomly impose the topic. The cringe nearly killed us all. Went to my partner's 5-year at the local Elks Lodge. He grew up in a really rich town, so it was super extravagant. Best part was the open bar until like 9 PM, and then cash afterwards. We were all having a great time until some scumbag snuck into the basement and stole a bunch of booze. Literally multiple boxes. When the bartenders found out at 8:30, they were furious and kicked us all out. Ruined what would have been an excellent night. Didn't attend, as I had moved far from my school, but in the process, I was emailing the organizer and wanted to get in touch with an old friend. Figured she could pass my message on. She had the misfortune of having to tell me he passed away at 30 from diabetes complications. Rough day. And I didn't even attend. I wasn't even invited to the high school reunion. Found out less than an hour before that my now ex-wife was cheating on me. High school jock raped a girl while she was passed out in a bathroom in high school. 10 years later he took her to the side at the reunion to tell her to stop telling people he raped her. My buddy took a headbutt to the face from a kid he used to bully. So that was awesome. Not high school, but one time I got invited to my college's alumni event. This was only a few years after I graduated, and I liked enough of my teachers to go just to see them. Anyway, we pull into the college and they have like 10 bouncy castles set up for the event. I'm still confused. Someone told me, "You're not a failure. Be yourself." And so when I went and proudly told them what I was doing these days, working a $9.25/hour job, going back to school, having gotten life together in a rehab, and back on track, I was proud. They all pitied me, and one dude tried to give me money. It made me feel bad about my current progress. I hate people. Damn. I was class president, and didn't get invited. I was no longer living in the country, and wouldn't have gone anyways. But dang. I wish I would have been invited. Sitting and having several beers, and catching up with an old classmate on one night of the reunion. 1 month later the news broke that the same person were arrested for luring a minor for sex. Turns out after they left the reunion that night, they went home and started chatting with the minor online. The minor was actually an undercover officer and had been having conversations with my classmate for a couple weeks prior. This person had a family at home. Ended up being sentenced to 5 years in prison. My mother-in-law passed away a few years ago at the age of 90. Her reunions were annual at a restaurant on the same day every year. Because there is 4 of them left, one day a single person is going to show up and be all alone. This guy slammed some worn natty light during beer pong, then held his wrist up to his mouth as if it were coming back up, and then he projectile vomited. The best part is that all of it somehow shot forcefully from his fingers like Spider-Man, and we wed everyone on that side of the room with vomit. It was full of cooked onions. It was amazing. Someone confessed to me that I was his dream girl with his fiancée as his date to the reunion. I barely knew the guy in high school. Unfortunately for his fiancée, she didn't know anyone there, and he refused to leave with her. He drunkenly said, "I'm not leaving with her. I'm leaving with you," to me. I told her to text me when their car was outside. Then, I whispered, "Let's go," in his ear, walked him out, and put him in her car. I'll never forget the look on his face when he realized who was driving, and I said, "Yeah, that's how tonight is going to end." But they still got married. So my husband invited the entire party to our home. The reunion was being held at a place built to hold parties. Well, the majority of the people that were invited came, so we had 100 crammed into a 2,500 square foot house, and a bunch of them decided to jump into our pool, which was ice cold. I was not pleased with my husband. I asked a classmate about her husband. She told me he can go duck himself. They just got divorced. I asked another classmate about his kids. His wife left him and took the kids unannounced. The special ed kids got drunk and 2 of them started fight over a girl. My high school ex got drunk, pinned me against the wall, and jammed her tongue down my throat right in front of my wife and her husband. Maybe not the worst night of my life, but it was definitely interesting. Edit. Sorry everyone. Too many pronouns. She stuck her tongue down my throat in front of my wife and my classmate's husband. A girl took drugs with some of her friends. She started going crazy and kissed a random guy in front of his boyfriend before spitting to his face and yelling, "You small stick. Never loved you, loser." I didn't knew the guy, but he cried and left the party immediately with his friends. That broke the ambience for the rest of the night. It was at a convention center and the college hockey game was next door. Once the game ended, some drunk guy came in and started eating scones, and went to the bar and pounded about 5 free beers before security kicked him out. He stuffed scones in his pockets while being escorted to the door. I was never invited to my reunion, but hitting that reunion after the hockey game was awesome. I'll never forget the taste of those pocket scones. I was at one not too long ago. We have a very small school, so a reunion meant a handful of high school classes getting together at the new building for our school. For a quick background, the principal at the time I was there was the daughter of the founder of the school. She was super old, and her daughter, who had daughters of her own, worked as a teacher. Anyways, all 3 generations are standing 5 feet or so from my group, and we were actively making fun of the old principal for being racist. She totally was. And I think we were loud enough to be heard. My evidence. She was constantly glaring at our group the entire rest of the night. Very awkward. Loaned a friend money. Never say the money or friend again. At our 5-year reunion, one dude had a threesome with my best friend and another girl. Hardly the worst thing. But he was in a relationship at the time, and I had to hear about the details of it from my best friend. Apparently his stick was much smaller than anticipated. Truly terrible. Middle school. Not high school. Me and a friend went exploring the school. Went into the library, which was being renovated. Found an abandoned hallway. Climbed a ladder to reach a walkway over the ceiling of the gym, with a stairway leading somewhere we didn't think was even part of the building. Opened the door to find asbestos. Just a ducking lot of asbestos. I don't even know what the room was. It just started falling like snow when we opened the door, and then my friend said, "Hey, there's a sign that says warning. Asbestos. Maybe this stuff is asbestos." And that's the story of how I got mesothelioma. Probably edit. Guys. Stop. Some girl brought her ex Mrs. American 19 whatever mom to the party, and she went on to everyone about how shocking it was, about how pretty I'd gotten. 20 at the time. I love being reminded how fat I used to be by white trash and juicy sweats.